Hey, what's up, Loyal, and welcome back to the Cover 3. I'm your host, Rob Ferguson, and joining me today is Brendan Hyland, and unfortunately, Mike Valenti couldn't join us. But if you don't know what we do on the Cover 3, we go over three main topics in sports. So, Brendan, let's get right into it now. Topic number one is the NCAA National Championship. Kentucky captured its 8th national title last night as coach John Calipari led the Wildcats to a 67-59 victory over Kansas. Freshman phenom Anthony Davis was named player of the game, tallying a record-tying 6 blocks. This was John Calipari's first national championship and 4 Final Four appearances. But Brendan, does this put him on that tier of elite coaches in college basketball?
Well, Rob, I think that he's been in that elite tier. I think that this just further solidifies it. You know, you look at guys like Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Bill Self, Tom Izzo, Billy Donovan. Those guys in my book are all on that elite level. And the difference before last night was they all had rings and Calipari didn't. And now Calipari does. And he did it, in my opinion, really in a pretty dominant fashion last night. You know, pretty much outplaying Kansas, outworking Kansas. You saw, you know, he made different adjustments throughout that game. You know, Terrence Jones went into foul trouble. He puts Darius Moses in the game. Instead of putting, you know, a bigger body, he goes with the experience. So, yeah, I think that Calipari is absolutely on that elite level.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a great coach. I mean, the only thing that may scare me with Calipari is the fact that he's been in trouble with UMass. He's been in trouble with Memphis, and he kind of left those schools as soon as he got in trouble for the NCAA violations.
Right.
So I don't really question his coaching ability by any means. I know he's a great coach. He gets his teams to the championship all the time. But his recruiting, you know, is questionable. It's questionable,
yeah.
You know, but hopefully nothing comes out about this. You know, I'm happy for Calipari and the Wildcats. You know. And I do believe he's a good coach, and I think it's unfair to only judge coaches by, you know, how many championships they have, just especially with the way the NCAA tournament is formed with a, you know, one loss and you're out.
Exactly.
Any upset can happen any night.
And the other thing is, before he came to Kentucky, you know, coaching at UMass and coaching at Memphis, those aren't two glamour jobs.
Right.
You know, yeah, he got Derrick Rose, yeah, he got Marcus Camby, but that's him recruiting. That's not the prestige of the program recruiting those kids in ways that Krzyzewski gets at Duke, Roy Williams gets at Carolina. So he's always won, and up to Kentucky, he won at low-profile schools, and that's impressive to me.
Yeah, he's definitely a good coach, and he's definitely up there with the elite. But, Brendan, let's talk about the types of players he recruits. He always gets those top prospects in the country. We know that Anthony Davis, John Wall, Derrick Rose. But the one-and-done plague has been surrounding Kentucky for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on that?
Well, my thing is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that the one-and-done, especially for a team like Kentucky, is something that is working. You know, I mean, Elite Eight, Final Four, National Championship, and clearly, you know, those teams are getting better. Now, the difference between this team and the previous teams, the one with Brandon Knight last year and 2 years ago with Wall and Cousins, is they had upperclassmen who had played in big games. You know, you look at this team, Darius Miller, Deron Lamb led them in scoring last night with 22 points, Terrence Jones. If you take those three off of this team, or people want to minimize their contributions, that's ridiculous, because you could argue that Deron Lamb is the best offensive player on that team. Whether or not he is a different story, but you can make that argument. And so I think that the one-and-done thing, I think is getting overplayed, and I think that people aren't really understanding the impact, especially on this Kentucky team, that those three guys, Jones, Lamb, and Miller, had on this team.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. I mean, it's just, I think it gets overplayed in the media, the one and done. They're making the wrong decision. But quite frankly, if you're the best player in college basketball and you have the opportunity to be the #1 pick like John Wall did, Derrick Rose, and now Anthony Davis, they should go, because, I mean, Anthony Davis could be dominating college basketball for 3 more years, and that almost wouldn't be fair to other college players.
And especially when you are clearly going to be the #1 pick. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind right now that Anthony Davis is the #1 pick. And so if I was him, I would go pro too.
Yeah, I mean, the one and done, it's been, you know, since Carmelo Anthony, and, you know, it's been tough, but for teams, you know, Calipari's not always happy about it. But at the same time, if these guys are NBA ready, I think they should make the leap to the NBA, because then you just have a longer NBA career, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And I would like to see a rule change, because I think that it should be similar to how Major League Baseball does it with, you can enter the draft after high school, but then if you choose to go to college, you're in there for a minimum of 2 years, and then you can jump to the league. That's my own personal opinion, but we'll see what happens with that. But Rob, now we're going to switch it up. We're going to go to the NBA update. And Rob, with this shortened NBA season, it's winding down. There's only about 13 games left, but there's still plenty of question marks surrounding teams and their playoff hopes, and in particular, your New York Knicks. With recent injuries to Amari Stoudemire and Jeremy Lin, which will most likely hold the both of them out for the rest of the year, the Knicks will have to grind it out to maintain their 2-game lead in the East. So, Rob, at the end of the day, do the Knicks make the playoffs?
Yes, obviously I'm going to go with my New York Knicks. I believe in them, and I think it comes down to the fact that Carmelo Anthony's still on the floor, and this gives him that opportunity to take that more of a leadership role in the team. And believe it or not, the Knicks are ranked 5th in defense in the entire NBA. Tyson Chandler has transformed them into a defensive team, and we have the depth, and that was great in the beginning of the season, or the mid part of the season rather, when we had the depth and we were bringing in 10 guys. But you know what? Now we encounter some injuries, and that depth is coming up huge for us with Baron Davis, J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, Landry Fields. So I think we're prepared for a situation like this. Does it hurt us? Absolutely. Jeremy Lin and Amari Stoudemire were 2 great players for us, but I think the Knicks could definitely hold on to that 8th spot, and I think that while the Bucks are playing well, I don't think they're going to have enough run in them to make it to the playoffs.
See, I go just the opposite. I do not think that the Knicks will make the playoffs. I think that the Bucks will surpass them. If you look at the schedule, the Knicks still have to play the Bulls twice, the Magic, the Pacers, the Heat, the Celtics, the Clippers. They just have more of a grind, I think, than the Bucks. And I think that, especially against those teams I just mentioned, not having Stoudemire is really going to hurt them, in particular on the glass, but also offensively in the lane. Now they really don't have anybody that can post up, take you down on the block and score. And I know that that's not really Amari's forte, but that's a big part of their offense. And when you have a playmaker like Jeremy Lin and you take him out of your lineup towards the end of the season, I think that's a big hit to your team.
Yeah, I mean, Brennan, I can see where you're coming from with the schedule and everything, but the Knicks, after that rocky start when they were, I believe 8 games under 500, and Lin came in and got them back to 500, and they went on a short slide after that. But since then, they've looked like a top 5 team in the East. Right. Not only not the 8 team. If they didn't start off so shaky, they could look like they should be competing with the teams like the Magic, the Bulls, and the Heat. I'm not saying that they're going to win those games. That is an extremely tough stretch, which you brought up. But I think that they definitely. I think it will be the test that, if they do win those games and make the playoffs, then they are a legitimate, East contender if they win that, as far as I'm concerned.
I think that the one thing that they do have in their favor is they have depth, and in particular on the wing, and they can play small ball and put Melo at the 4 and play with, Fields, Davis, and Shumpert. Or they can play Smith, Shumpert, and Fields, and play Melo at the 4 and play Chandler at the 5. And defensively, while they may be at a disadvantage, offensively they can spread you out. All those guys can take guys off the dribble. So that is their advantage. But I personally just think that the Bucks right now, they're playing well. They're hot. They have the easier schedule of the 2. I personally think that they're just going to take it.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, we'll see. It's definitely going to be a test for the Knicks, and the Bucks are going to have to play really well. And we'll keep you updated on what happens with the final playoff spot. Like we said, it's only a couple, about 15 games left in the season, so it's going to be over before we know it.
Yeah.
But Brendan, let's hop right into topic number 3 right now, and that is the MLB season opener starts tomorrow night, Wednesday night. It kicks off on ESPN with the New Look Marlins hosting the defending World Series champions, the St. Louis Cardinals. With one of the most eventful off seasons in baseball history, this will certainly be a change for many baseball clubs. So, Brendan, with players like Albert Pujols and Prince Fielder moving over to the American League, do you find the National League to be an inferior league at this point?
Well, it's funny you say that. The National League has won the last few World Series, but by and large, I've always, I shouldn't say always, but for the last few years anyway, I've considered the American League to always be the superior league, and especially offensively. And people say, it's because of the DH, they have the advantage. And I don't know if that's it. I think that just 1 through 9, there are better hitting ball clubs in the American League than in the National League. And I think that it's evident when you see pitchers, and the best 2 examples are Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay, who were both very good in the AL to completely dominant in the NL. And so do I think that these 2 moving to the AL makes them or makes the NL weaker? Yeah, I guess, but I think that they've always been the weaker league. And baseball is the one sport where one guy, while he can change the game, it's not like you can ride him and you're almost guaranteed a victory if that guy's hot. So I don't think that's necessarily true here.
Yeah, I mean, those teams may have particularly got weaker, the
Right.
Cardinals and the Brewers. But like we said, the past two World Series champions are the San Francisco Giants and the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
And they did it through pitching and defense. And
Right.
that's what this league has really come down to. I think, moving out of the steroid era, we've seen a lot of batting averages drop, and we've seen a lot of ERAs drop at the same time.
Right.
And while we always know the American League is known for its big hitters, and they definitely improved with those two people moving over.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt that the National League can still compete on any level, especially a World Series
Right.
level, because we know pitching is very important. They can shut down any batters at any time, and I was talking to Valenti before the show. He said pitching could shut down batting at any time.
Oh,
and
anytime,
it's so true.
And the thing is, when you look at a rotation like the Phillies, and you say is the NL weaker, well, the Phillies are the best rotation in baseball. So it's not like the NL, it is a vastly inferior league. I personally just believe that offensively, it is in an inferior league.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the pitchers that are in the AL, if you put them against the NL teams for a regular season, you would see a significant decrease, I guess, in their ERA.
Yeah, and I mean, you saw the same thing happen with CC Sabathia when he moved over
when
from
he
the
went to the
Indians
Brewers.
to the Brewers. He completely dominated
ridiculous.
the entire NL. I think he went undefeated for the rest of the season.
And I mean, they were pitching him on 3 or 4 days rest.
Exactly.
And, he had nowhere because he just wasn't being challenged.
There's no doubt about it. You're going to see a lot more small ball in the NL. You're going to see a lot of, aggressive base running. And then in the AL, you'll see the home runs and a lot of RBIs like
Right.
you usually do. But, that's the way baseball is. That's what it's come down to these days. So it's pitching versus batting, and that's usually what it comes down to in the World Series. And the NL has had the advantage in the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to say, Brendan, before we end the show?
I just want to say congratulations to John Calipari getting that monkey off his back. But I also want to say that Ubaldo Jimenez getting suspended for 5 games for plunking Troy Tulowitzki the other day is absolutely absurd. And just for that, Bud Selig should be fired.
That's a bold statement. I mean, if you saw the video, Jimenez did charge him a little bit after the pitch, but that's besides the point. Everybody, we want to wish you a happy Easter. You have a great break, and we'll catch you when you get back. We'll see you next week, Loyal.